The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar, How to Broaden the Reach and Impact of Your Point Clouds. I'm Christine Grail, Content Marketing Manager for Leica Geosystems and the moderator for today's session. Our presenter today is Bill Wallace. Bill is the Senior Product Manager for Leica Geosystems HDS software. He works closely with all HDS global stakeholders, including customers, to set the direction for HDS software implementations. Bill has a long history in 3D CAD software, having worked for many of the largest companies in this space. Bill's industry experience is in structural steel engineering, and he also holds a degree in marketing. Also on the line with us today is Mike Harvey, who is our HDS Product Applications Manager. Before we begin the presentation, I'd like to give you a few tips. On the upper right side of your screen, you should see a widget bar. You can click on Help for an online technical FAQ if you need assistance. To make the slides larger, click the full screen button. If at any time you'd like to ask a question, please enter it in the questions box. We welcome your questions and we'll address them later in the presentation. If we are unable to get to all the questions in our live session, someone will reach out to you after the webinar by email. Before we get started today, we do have a few quick polls we'd like to share to get a better idea of who is in our audience today. Our first poll is, what is your primary scanning application? You could quickly answer that. We can get an idea of who's listening in and what type of work you do. Looks like we have a lot of civil survey applications today and a little bit of other applications as well. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll and share the results. And we do just have one more quick poll I'd like to share here. And that is, how would you describe your primary interaction with point clouds? Are you maybe out in the field capturing the data with the laser scanner? Do you primarily handle the administrative side of the data and data management? Maybe you do a little bit of both. Or maybe you primarily interact with the point clouds as an end-use tool or informational tool. Go ahead and answer that. Looks like we do have a lot of people in the audience today who are doing both data capture and data management. I'll go ahead and close this and share the results. Thank you again for participating in those polls. That gives us a great idea of what we can emphasize in this presentation. And Bill, with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Christy. Really appreciate that. Today, we're talking about data capture and how you can share your point clouds, broaden the reach, and really we'd like to talk to you about our new product called TruView Global. So I'm really glad you came here. I'm really excited about this webinar. It's 2 or 3 slides and then lots of demos. So that's my preferred approach. But I assume you're probably aware with TruView, but just a little bit of background. And TruView was introduced almost 10 years ago. And it was really the first free web-enabled panoramic point cloud viewer for point clouds. And it really sort of changed the industry. Everybody has something like it now. We know that we have probably far more, maybe multiples more than 50,000 active users. And so it's a widely known and used product. And we're very happy to announce TruView Global and be talking about how it helps extend those capabilities of TruView into a much larger community of users, and we'll talk about why that is. And TruView really has just been a viewer in the past. We gave you a full data set, and then you gave that out to your users gave them the viewer. Now we're starting to manage a little bit larger part of the process, and we'll talk about what that means. So the first thing is to say that it runs anywhere with no plugin or app required. So in the past, TruView was an Internet Explorer plugin, so it only ran inside of Internet Explorer on a Windows computer. You had to install a browser plugin to do that. It started becoming more difficult over the years as virus protection and other security measures were implemented. The plugins were put on a much shorter leash, and the things TruView wanted to do were a little offensive to the security protocols, and so it had some real difficulties and limited who can see it. Now, we really just like to say point clouds everywhere. It's any device, any browser. So everything from smartphones, iPads, Mac, computer, and of course all the Windows, Chrome, Mozilla, all the browsers. Another thing that we've done is we've introduced a portal concept. So it's just the beginning of what this product will ultimately become, but instead of just a single disconnected data set, we now start to give you a website that organizes it for your users and makes it easy for them to find the projects and makes it easier for you to manage your data. And then the concept of centrally shared markup. So all along, TruView has had some markup capability, but to be able to share those was a little rough. You had to the webmaster had to get involved, and you had to export them out of your current session and import them. Now it's all up in, if the user has login rights to create markups, they can create them and they're shared with everyone on the system automatically. So it's a much higher order value to those things. And as I promised, just a couple of slides and we'll do some demo. What I'm going to do, the expectation here to help you understand is we're going to do some end user demos. I'm going to jump in and show you what end users can do with the product. Then we'll jump out and talk just a little bit about some of the management features, and then I'll come back in as an administrator or manager and show you sort of the back end of how this works. I would like, before I actually start a live demo, I want to run just a small movie to show you TruView working on an iPad, just because there's really no other way to do that during this webinar. But we've made this movie, and just want to show you that on the iPad, all the touch features are enabled, and this would be the same on your smartphone. You see, you can zoom and pan just with your fingers. There we're doing some panning, and we'll probably see some zooming here. You can zoom into items. You can jump to a new position. And again, this is without installing any new software, simply finding the URL where this exists, and then doing the markups. As soon as you go into a markup mode, the markup tools come up, and there's your keyboard for typing in things like that. So just wanted to quickly show that running and how it is completely capable and available on an iPad. Let me jump in and do another demo here. So here I'm jumping onto a live site. This is actually running out in the cloud, and then I'm connecting to it back in from my desktop. And what I've got here is I'm actually logged in as an administrator, so there's a few extra tools on the page that a normal user wouldn't see, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the projects have been organized in these groups here, and so if I want to go look at a project, I just jump in. I thought I was logged in already. Sorry about that. My session probably timed out. And that just lets you know that what we've got is a new user login and control. So it's a full site. Once I'm in the site, I can go say, okay, I want to see what's in this building, and here it is. And so this is how fast the performance is running across the cloud. I can jump out to another position, look around. It's just that easy. I can always go back and look at the site map again, or I can go all the way back up to the top level and see the various sites. And so that was the San Francisco Ferry Building. Let's go a little bit international now, and we'll jump over to France. I want to take you to the Notre Dame Cathedral in France. And I'll show another feature here. We're all probably familiar with the site map, but we also automatically create another set of views for you when you upload your data. And that's this per scan view. And you can see I have 3 pages of scan positions noted here. There's 10 per page. And I happen to know for this demo, I really want to go right to Scan World number 9. And so this might be similar if you know there's a certain room you want to go to. You don't know where it is on the plan, but you know the name of that scan. You can jump straight to it. And so here we are inside of the Notre Dame Cathedral. We can look around, zoom and pan, all that stuff. I'll jump over here, and I'm actually now up on the the main altar where you don't usually get to go spend any time, but here I am seeing this view from here. And what I'd like to do is then show on the left side is where I have my control panel with all of my tools. So one of the tools I want to show you is this thing we call neighbors, controlling our neighbors. So the neighbors are these other scan positions that I can jump to. And I have a set of filters for how to control them. Right now, the maximum number of visibles is set to 6 out of the total of 24. Well, I can crank this up now and see all 24 positions. And you can see I've got some positions up on some of these upper floors up above me. There's some different things I can do. If I'm not interested in seeing the neighbors, another filter, I can just turn them off. Say, nope, not interested in seeing them right now. I want to take a nice clean screenshot, or they're just in my way. When I turn them back on, they come on, but they've actually turned their label off. Maybe I don't care about the names of these positions, but if it is important, I can turn those on, and there I can read the names. So I have complete control there. I also can say, you know what? It's showing me ones that are within 10 meters out to 63 meters. That's apparently the default. If I was more familiar with feet, I could look and say, well, what is that in feet? Oh, from 35 feet to 205 feet where I am. I could say, you know what? Let's turn on this distance filter, and I only want to see ones that are within, 100 feet or something. So you can kind of change that slider and show different ones. I'll turn that off. But here's another really nice one is the elevation. It's showing me that the elevations of the scanner positions are between 118 and 226 feet. Well, I might be working only on this single floor, and so I don't want to see things above me. So I'm going to turn on this elevation filter, and you can watch the higher ones up start to disappear as I pull this down. And there they go. And so now I've only got from 115 to 139. I know all my positions are now on the ground floor, the only positions I'm going to see. I'll go ahead and turn that off. Now I can see all the positions. And let's go, just for interest, go look at something that, if you go visit the Notre Dame Cathedral, I guarantee you've never been in this part of it. I'm now up in the attic. We happen to have gotten access up there. You can see before they were doing steel construction, they've got some sort of a turnbuckle here made out of wood, kind of interesting. You can see the old beams. There's an interesting concept that I thought was kind of interesting. You have this structural component that's pinned together. I have these two wood members, and it's got a big pin running through it, holding it together. That's kind of cool, but I wonder if anyone's a little bit worried that a pin is missing over here. So anyway, if you visit the Notre Dame Cathedral, please be careful. I'm going to jump back out up to the top here, bring us back to the States, and I'm going to go look at another data set and show you a couple of other features. So this is a bridge out here in Oregon. It's got some geotags listed in here, which we'll look at those in a little bit. It's got a couple different positions. And in here, I can see that there's what we call a saved snapshot. There's been a snapshot saved. So I can go look at this snapshot, and the camera takes me back there and shows me, somebody's done some dimensioning in here. And when I look, this is how we're identifying the location of these knuckles, is by identifying one top point on an anchor bolt, and they put some other things in there. So this was a saved snapshot. And it's actually quite an easy thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look across the street here. I can see there's some more knuckles over there. So I'm going to jump over to this other position. I'm still looking in the same direction, so I have to turn myself around here. But here's another one of those knuckles. And I'm going to come in and just add a few things. So the first thing I do is create a snapshot. So I'm going to say this is knuckle number 5. And I'll say OK. So I've created this little snapshot. I can go and say, OK, I want to put a position right on top of this anchor bolt. And I click it there. And say, there it is. You know what? So what happens is as soon as you start doing an operation, all of the tools you might need for that operation are offered up to you. You don't have to go find them under a menu somewhere. So I can say, oh, you know what? That's actually kind of a small looking text. I want to make it a little bit bigger. Okay? That's cool. I'll say that's okay. Now the next thing I want to do is start doing some dimensions. And I'm going to dimension between these two anchor bolts. And you'll notice that it saved the setting, that 18 that I had used before. And I said, but you know what? I think I would prefer that my dimensions are done in red. And so I can change that to red. That's great. Let's go say OK to that. We'll add another dimension from there to there. Okay, that's pretty good. And what else am I going to do? Let's see. We'll OK that one. And maybe I wanted to put some text out there. So I'll go ahead and draw a box. And this is how easy it is to just change the color of that box and say, actually, I want it to be filled with a white background. Let's say OK, and maybe make that so it's somewhat transparent, just so the text will show up a little bit better when I put some text on top of it. And I'll put it right there and say, pick that, say this is knuckle number 5. And I'll say OK. So there we go. I've created a snapshot. I can go off of this snapshot and just show you when you call up a snapshot, what happens is the system turns you back to that position and shows you the notes on there. So a pretty cool kind of a thing. I'm going to go look at another version of the Oregon Bridge I have running on another system over here. Where in this one we've actually added some other information that I want to show you. And so in this one, we'll go back into that similar position. You'll notice all these little things around here. These are called geotags. And so I can go and look at these geotags, and it shows me a list of the geotags that I can see from this position. And if I click on one of these, so this might be anything you have in your scene. Here we have the stoplights and the highway lights. When you click on one of these here, it moves the camera and highlights and shows me, there was a stoplight over here named stoplight number 3. And just as an instance of something you can do is, you might be using this in the field with an iPad, and I've added a link under stoplight number 3. And when they click on that, it takes them out on the web to the maintenance manual for working with this light here. So they can look and see what the part numbers are to order. So it just shows you how you can start doing some data linking. Now, to let you know how that's done is in Cyclone, the user had gone in and put a little box around that stoplight and added this information, the name of the light, what category it's a part of. And in fact, right now, all categories are showing, and I can say, just show me the light categories, and it will turn off the other items. And so the data has been linked. This was done in Cyclone, and all the various positions that that stoplight shows in now have those links. So it's a nice little sort of similar to maybe a GIS type of scenario. What I'd like to do is jump back in and just look at a few more slides if we might do that, and then we'll come back and do some more demo.
Bill, before you move on, we do have a couple of questions about the end user portion, and I'm wondering if we could just go ahead and address those quickly while it's still fresh.
That'd be great.
Okay, great. With regard to the scan positions and naming of the different labels, is that something that has to be done in Cyclone?
Yes, they simply inherit the scan world names in Cyclone. So whatever names you've given them in there, and you can go in and rename them in Cyclone, but it's currently just inherited from Cyclone.
Okay, and the same thing with the geotags as well?
Yeah, so the geotags, they're a little bit outside the scope of this because we were really talking about TruView Global. That's sort of an existing technology. But essentially what you do is in Cyclone, like for that stoplight, we actually put a box around that stoplight, a volume definition. And attached to that box, we said this is of the category stoplight. You could put a article number, a tag number, an index number in there. And I said I'd like to link it to this piece of information. Then during the TruView publishing process, each scan world is analyzed, and if it finds any of those, a box that has those points inside of it, says, oh, that stoplight exists here, then it automatically adds that geotag to the scene. So it starts to set up like a GIS or asset management type system. And this is actually one of the areas where we're going to do a lot of expansion in the product. I'd say over the next 90 days even, you'll see some big advancements in being able to do this data linkage and make it much more available to the users on the front end. So we'll probably come back with another webinar as we get that asset management sort of application parts built out over the next few months.
Okay,
so
great.
we still have the ability to add a hot link one at a time inside the TruView environment, though.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. One more question.
Yeah, the geotagging is just sort of a batch way of doing it, but you can also just go through and author hot links yourself wherever you'd like.
Great. Just one more question quickly here, and that is regarding the accuracy of the measurements when you're using the markup tools. Someone was wondering if you were actually going from the center of the bolts to get that accurate measurement.
So again, that's a great question. And no, TruView is really, it's not, although the data that it's getting is survey grade data, it's using the Leica data or whatever data comes from. The tools themselves are sort of generic, simplistic tools. The way I always talk about saying, if you've got a garage door opening and you're trying to figure out if your truck is going to fit through there or how much scaffolding you're going to use, that's fantastic. But if you're trying to determine the diameter of that bolt, we probably don't quite have the accuracy for you to get to that. So it's really sort of a visual WYSIWYG. And you're also in this panoramic view. So we have some other type of measuring tools where, let me jump back into the demo if you don't mind, and I'll show something else about a demo tool. Just real quick. I think it's worth looking at. So if I come in here and I'll go back over to this knuckles detail, and let's say I wanted to know how tall this wall is over here. So I'm going to take a distance between 2 points. Okay, let me try that again. Let me go back to the knuckles detail. Okay, I got inside the right one this time. And let's say I want to know how tall this wall is. I can pick a point there, and I can pick a point down on the roadway. Well, the reality is that's 50 feet away from my viewpoint, and I don't know from the X, if I picked some point out on the road. But what you'll notice is that I get an X, Y, Z of that information once I say OK here. Oh, let me go back in there. Sorry about that. That unplanned part of the demo, when you're working without a net here. Okay. I'm trying to recall, the interface has changed a little bit. I'm trying to recall where my XYZ info is going on there. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it listed out here. So let me try this. Sorry about that. Okay, I have to place the data and say okay. Dang, Mike, do you remember where we put that data? I know it's in here. I'm sorry to flub up on my demo like this, folks. But we do give you the data of the X, Y, and Z deltas, but I'm just not seeing it right now. I'm not sure if it's because I'm running in a beta system or what, so that's a bit of an embarrassment. But back to the question is, it's really sort of the simplistic tool. You can use Cyclone Free Viewer and get very accurate dimensions, but in TruView, you're working in a little bit more of a disconnected space, if that makes sense. So I want to talk a little bit about the admin features if I can. And so if you're using TruView already, the way TruView Global works, it's a new project vault, that server that you install, and it hosts the data, but you use the same old TruView data. So if you had TruView data sets that you created 3 years ago, you can go ahead and put them right up to this system, or if you're creating them today, you put them up there. And it's really an easy drag and drop posting to the web. You just use the pack and go tool, has been enhanced. It packs up your package for you. You literally drag and drop it in. I'm actually going to show you a demo of that live in just a moment. And then there's powerful but simple administrative tools. So the administrator gets a lot of back-end tools. And actually the reason I'm running on a beta server today is so I can show you some of the tools that are going to come out just in the next couple of weeks. Like I say, this product is just released a week ago, and we already have some pretty major updates in the queue coming out. And then as terms in the back-end infrastructure, we're just really proud of this. It's built on some of the most modern technologies out there and is just scalable beyond what you can believe. If you needed to be able to support, 1,000 simultaneous users, all you have to do is crank up your virtual machines to be able to handle that. The system is going to simply take advantage of every resource that you can hand it. It's actually a super lightweight system. The biggest bandwidth issue is when it's uploading projects. That's when you see a little bit of bandwidth usage, but you can have tens or even hundreds of users in there, and it hardly stresses the system at all. So it's very advanced. So the concept is that you publish your TruViews in the way you used to publish them. There's nothing different there. And in the old world, what you used to do is take that site map and those scan worlds, and you would host them on your network or on a website. But the steps today are you take that same TruView data set and you pack it using Pack and Go. This is a package that if you've linked to PDF documents, it goes and harvests those and brings them into the package so they can go along with it to the website so they aren't just sitting on your hard drive anymore. And you take that package and you upload it into the system. And it's literally just a drag and drop, and I'll show you that real time, and we'll bring a project up. And it's really just that simple to upload projects. And so with that, let me go back into the demos here and show you how we do some of that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm logged in as an administrator. So since I'm an administrator, I get these extra tools up here. So I'm going to say, let's go ahead and add a site. And here I've got this is 3 or 4 positions, so it'll happen real fast. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm now not working across the cloud. I'm actually working on a server that's running inside my office. And so it's going to be super fast. It wouldn't be quite this fast when I do it over the web, but not a lot different. But you'll see I dropped this up here, and it literally has uploaded this little project for us. And we're waiting for it to finish up. We can go look and see and it looks like it's completed its job already. I've got a little queue and a log that tells me what went on. It looks like everything was successful. And so now if I go back to this all sites, this comes in as a non-grouped. It originally comes to this thing called the no group. And here's that project that I just brought up. And I can actually show you that there it is. It brought the site map in. It's all ready to go. It actually created this list of the site map of the scan worlds automatically. And it's rocking, ready to roll and play. And there I am jumping right in. Nothing else to it. Literally, that's all it takes to add a project. And it's up and running. And so since I'm an administrator, if I click out on this project, I get some other pieces of information, some other tools to deal with. So I can come in here and I could rename this and call this the live demo data set. I'll say OK, and then I can give it a different tooltip. This is a cool tooltip. And say OK. And so now I changed this name. This is what the end users who log into my site will now see. And if they hover over here, they should get a tooltip. Like I say, I'm working on this current thing. Anyway, normally you would see the tooltip come up on that. The wonders of working without a net here. But the other thing I can do is I can say I'd actually like to put this into a new demo group. I'd like to add this to its own new group called new demo group. I do that, and down here I just created something called new demo group, and this has been added to that group. So there I am. I've done all those things. So whether I'm an administrator or a user, I will get this settings tab over here. I went up into the top bar. I happen to have an administrators tab since I'm logged in as an administrator. But every user will get this settings tab. And this is where they can change some of their own info. They can ask to change their password. And also, the system will see what operating system you're on, and it will offer up any of these currently available languages. But if you wanted to force it into a language, let's say you were using a English operating system, but you prefer to work in Spanish, you could change this to Spanish, and all of the interface will change. I don't like doing that because it changes the name of this also, and I get confused and don't know how to turn it back to the English language, as I got stuck in Hungarian one time and it wasn't any fun. But that's how that changes. And then just to show a little bit about the concept of what I talked about, a modern interface, I'm going to go ahead and size this down. And actually, I wanted to do that dynamically. But if you'll see, I'm not sure how fast you're seeing this over WebEx, but as I change the size of the screen, it starts reorganizing the icons. And in fact, I can take it all the way down to the size of a iPhone screen, and you can see the icons actually even get smaller. So this is what's known as a responsive or reactive dynamic interface. And so it's just really powerful, the types of things that can be done there. Another thing, as an administrator, and these are some of the newer tools we've put in, you have certain things you can do. You can come in here and manage your users. So it's very easy to set up user accounts. You just say add a new user, and it gives you a form to create that user. You can set up their role, whether they're an administrator or a power user. You also can see which users are inactive. So I can come in here and say, okay, I've got this guy, Yuri, who's an administrator. I'm going to go ahead and open him up, and I'm going to disable his account, save those changes. He's now an inactive user. But I'll be a nice guy and turn it back on. That's one of our QA personnel, and he may be in there doing some testing, so he probably wouldn't like that if I took him out of the system. Here it is. I have a tab. It shows, number one, that some user has requested to have their password reset. Out on the login page, you can request to have your password reset. You can also request a new account. And I had put in a request for a new account here, but it looks like somebody already set it up for me. So, but the administrator will get notifications and have these tabs. They can come here. And then I can also jump in and see who's on the site. Since this is my internal website, no one else is logged in right now. I'm the only user. But this is where you can add some customizations to your site. You can do some. So the administrator is really the top dog. You can go look at his logs and see what's been going on, who's been importing things. Is there stuff in the queue that's uploading? You could have several sites uploading at the same time, and they just sort of all get queued up together. You set up your email server so you can send notifications to users. The system actually is really nice in that once you have it installed, you can tell it to go check for an update. And if the update is out there, it actually, Leica has it posted on a website, that it will automatically find that. And you can ask it to update itself. And it's typically, if it replaces all the code on the system, it takes it about 3 minutes, because the actual code that's running is pretty compact in relative terms. And so users can do updates, literally push button update the software, never having to worry. And you can set this up with a frequency check where it automatically looks for those and sends you notifications. There's a bunch of other tools related to that. Of course, this is where you can set up your licensing, and then we have a whole API for this. And so this is where you would go out and look in the App Store of plugins that are coming online and be able to decide which plugins you'd like to add to your system. And so these are, some of the really cool administrative features that we thought we'd show you. One last thing, it's a little difficult to understand maybe from this type of a demo, but these data sets right now are all only available behind the login. When you come in as a user, if you log out, you'll see a login screen like this. And you have to log in. And once you're logged in, you can see all of the sites. And so these are what are known as private sites. But you'll notice some of them have this other slightly different icon, and that's what's known as a public site. And so a public site lets users log in. So what I can do as an administrator is I can highlight this and say, I'd like to make this a public site. And okay, this is a cool tooltip. Say okay. So I made that a public site. And now, of course, I'm working on a demo data set here. So let's go over here. And I believe I'm logged in as an administrator over here as well. And we'll go ahead and make this ferry building site a public site. Say okay, okay. And so it's become a public site here. It gave me this little flag. And what that means is I can go to this site, and now this URL that I have here, I can pass out, or I can use it if I'm building my own web page. And people could just take this URL and get directly to this site without the login. What will happen is if they come in, and let's go try and do that. And we'll come out here, and I'll log into this site directly. So this is all they'll see. They don't have some of the other, it looks like it still sees me as a user. So let me log out and then try that again. Sorry, work in real time here, folks. So now I'm logged in onto a public site. I don't have any of those control tools. I do get the site. And so as an anonymous user, I can come in here and I can see snapshots that have been created, but I don't have any of the authoring tools. I'm a read-only user. And those things, there'll be all kinds of sophisticated various ways you can let people log in and not log in. But today that's how it works, is that you can have this concept of public sites versus private sites. And so that helps if you have websites that you've already built up. You can now host these TruViews as public sites on those websites, and people can get at that data with any kind of an iPhone or iPad or any other device. I think I have one or two slides to finish out. So just talk a little bit about if you're going to install this yourself and run it, you have sort of three different ways you can do that. There's a document that's actually available as a part of the webinar here. You should be able to see a PDF, and maybe at the end, Christy can help us understand how to download that. But we have a document that helps you understand these. You can give it to your IT professionals to help them understand the options. But you can install this on your own computer inside your own business and just keep it all inside. Nobody in the rest of the world outside of your network can see it. You can actually run it on your in-house network, and you could open that up to the internet. If you have a good internet connection into your building, your IT will give you some clues on how to do that, but basically it's called tunneling if you have a firewall. But you just need to open a port to the outside world, and people can see in, and you can host it from your own office. We do that here for certain scenarios. And then the other one is in the cloud, and that's literally you can do it at any service provider out there. What we've done is we have a cloned version. We installed it on Amazon. They have a service called AWS where they rent you computers out in the cloud. And what we did was we went out and did a complete install of TruView Global and the license server, and we give you documentation that tells you how you can copy that installation. I know it works well. I have a couple of customers I spoke with this morning who've already used that technique to do a demo as part of their demo process. And so we give you full documentation on all of those items. Some of the documents are mentioned in the download document that we have for you today, but you can also find them on our website, where the same place where you find the downloads. And just a technical insight is TruView Global is implemented as a virtual machine. So what we do is we give you a virtual machine image, and if you're familiar with that, I wouldn't need to say anything else. If you're not familiar, it's a modern technology that servers use where one computer can pretend to be many different kinds of computers. You basically have a software version of a computer running on a computer. And so what we've done is we have several different formats. We have virtual VMware, which is a big player. We also have Hyper-V, which is Microsoft's version, and we have VirtualBox, which comes from Oracle. But these are all technologies that allow you to set up a VM, a virtual machine. So you basically just get an entirely configured computer from us, and you expand it onto any running computer you have. IT people would be very familiar with this. It's actually quite simple to do, and we actually have step-by-step instructions for both internal and external to make it as simple as possible. So again, just to iterate those 3 possible ways you can do it. You can have it on your own in-house network, and all the users are just on your network. You can open a port to the internet while it's on your in-house network, and now users outside, either public users can come in and see if you give them the URL, or private. They can get inside if you give them a login. If you set up a user account, they can come and log in and see the data. And then you can do it up on Amazon AWS, and the people back in your office and your customers can all get that. I think that's the end of my beautiful slides. Oh, okay, so this is probably our closing slide here, and then we'll see if there's any other questions. But for end users, it's really built to be easy to use. We think it's just as easy as the old TruView, maybe even easier. Of course, you don't have anything to install. It's just if you can discover the URL where this is, or you have a user login, there you go. Everything else, whether you're on your phone or you're on an iPad or you're on a Mac, it all just works. If you have a login account, you can create these markups and everybody else can see them. It's the same familiar workflow that we've used before. You publish your TruViews and then literally just drag and drop them. The only thing I didn't show was publishing the TruView data set from Cyclone, which I'm sure people know how to do, and running TruView Pack and Go, which is literally you just say, there's the source file and I want to locate it over here. It's a push button operation. And to post it, it's literally just drag and drop. That's all there is to it. It creates all that other stuff automatically. I literally did that real time for you. When I say infinite scalability, it really is true. If you needed to support 10,000 users, all you'd have to do is crank up the bandwidth, rent a bigger machine from Amazon or build a bigger computer in your closet. And of course, we give improved control from the administrator now has a lot of more control over the system. And just the final point I'd make, there's not a bullet point for it, but is the pace of change in this product will be pretty incredible. We have a dedicated team. We can do the updates literally at a push button. And so we have a just huge list of stuff coming online. A lot of it you'll see there'll be several updates before the end of the year with incredible new functionality all built into the initial system, but just a push button. So I want to thank you very much. And Christy, turn it back over to you, or Mike, if you guys have any questions, or there were questions queued up.
Thank you, Bill. We do have a number of questions that are coming in from the audience right now. I did want to mention quickly that if anyone wants to see examples of public sites like Bill was talking about, that link is posted in the chat box, so you can just click through there or copy and paste it and check it out later. And also the document that Bill referenced is available in the handout section, and you should just be able to download that right from your control panel.
And one of our public sites is that Notre Dame site, so you can go see if you can find your way into the attic.
Yeah, that is a fun one.
2 positions up there.
Excellent. So we do have a number of questions. One of them is, how is TruView Global packaged up? If someone already has Publisher, for example, do they automatically get access to TruView Global, or is this a separate piece of software?
Yeah, and so this is offered as an additional piece of software. Just I didn't make it clear, but TruView Publisher and the old TruView will continue to keep working just like they work today. And what we've got now is TruView Global is a purchased product. You buy a license for it, and it provides you with the project vault. And that's what gives you this ability to upload the data. So it is an additional purchase, and what it does is it gives a new way to distribute your TruView data that now gets converted into this new format. That's what's happening. When I did that drag and drop, there was actually a huge amount of work going on in the background. But the data gets copied up, and then it gets completely reformatted in a lot of ways to make it available across all these various platforms. So it is an additional cost, but what it does is opens up TruView to a whole new community of users. And I can tell you it's a one-time purchase price, which is not that expensive, and then an ongoing yearly fee, which is very low. So it's actually, pretty low cost compared to the value. And we also, have demo versions available that you can try it out and see if it's going to work for your organization or not.
Sure, and anyone who's interested can certainly reach out to their local rep or dealer and talk to them about specifics. Now, in terms of packaging up this software, we talked a lot about Cyclone and the related tools. What about for someone who's using an MS-50 or MS-60 and wants to work with data from Leica Infinity? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cyclone directly can read the XML files that are generated by MS-50s and MS-60s. And the data comes in as a full-fledged data into Cyclone, which really can come from any scanner. It can come from a Faro, a Regal, a Trimble if you go through the steps of moving the data out in PTX. So all of the scanners. What I would say is that TruView is really built on the concept of these pano images. So a lot of times with MS-50, people aren't doing a full dome scanning. But I would say if you take the time to at least do a full dome image, go back and get the imagery, it will really help the users understand the scene a lot more. Sometimes you're just scanning a building or something, you're just going around the outside, you're only doing maybe 180 degrees of the azimuth. But for TruView, it's going to be a better experience if it has full dome images at least. But it absolutely works cleanly with that data. I wish I would have thought of it and had one of my sample data sets here for that, because it is a very common workflow. Not just possible, but a lot of people are doing it.
Sure. Just a point of clarification, does someone have to have Publisher in order to run TruView Global, or can they just have Global and not Publisher?
Well, there's some difficulty in answering that question, but you don't have to have Publisher, but to be clear, Publisher is what creates TruView data, so you have to have TruView data. What TruView Global is a new server that serves up TruView data. So if you had, say, a service provider who does work for you, and they did the scans, they did the registration, and they created TruViews, then they would just give you the TruViews. In that case, you wouldn't have to have Publisher, but somewhere in the chain, Publisher is the one that creates TruView data. TruView Global is just a server that allows it for lots of people to see it. So I hope that answers that clearly.
Great, thank you. What about in terms of hosting? What type of machine do you need to host, for example, 10 users concurrently viewing a 100 scan project?
Yeah, it's actually really low bandwidth. We have some of that information in the documentation out there. On the Amazon, like for Amazon AWS, where you're renting a virtual machine, we've configured it at like the second level. They have like 10 levels of machines you can rent. We're at like the second level just because the very lowest level, they say, is really just for development. So if you had, for instance, we have a server in our office here that we run, lots of our software development on and lots of other things. We took just a little bit of space off of that machine to run TruView Global at the same time, and it doesn't stress it at all. The only thing is make sure you have enough storage space. If you're going to have hundreds of gigabytes of data, you need to make sure you have a disk for that storage space, but it's very low bandwidth requirements. I'm not a server technician, but I know it's not a very, it doesn't require a lot of back-end power. Really, the only time it stresses the system at all is when you're uploading a website, and you can see if it's 3 or 4 positions, it happened in a few seconds here. So it's really pretty low bandwidth requirements in terms of CPU and memory.
Okay, great. We do have some questions, as expected, with the broader access that TruView Global provides. We have some questions about security. Number one is, how do you establish a user login? And then the other kind of related question is, can the administrator customize each user profile to limit which sites they can access?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I'll address them sort of as 2 different questions. So on a security, the way the security works is you are creating a user login. So it's a user name and a user password. And it's SSL level security, so it's a standard. It's the same kind of password you're using to log into your bank. If somebody knows your username and can guess your password, there's not a lot you can do about that. But in terms of security level, we're literally using the same technologies that banks use for the login. So, and then the other thing is what we would call multi-tenant, and so that's the ability to say user A can see site number 1 and 2, and user B can see site number 3 and 4. And unfortunately, out of the gate, the very first version of TruView that we've shipped, that we've made available, all users can see all sites. That's just for simplification in the administration tools. That's one of the first things we're working on. You'll see that enhancement come shortly so that you will be able to manage users per site. The only way you can do that right now is with the public sites, where you would set up your own website behind your own login. But you can expect that what we would call multi-tenant. They use that terminology in the web world. Right now we're a single tenant. So basically we only have one key to the front door, and once you get in, you can get into every room in the building because it's just a single tenant. But we will have the multi-tenant capabilities coming online very soon. I'm reticent to say exactly a date, but I would say, over the next quarter or so, and probably sooner. But I don't have the commitments from engineering yet. But it's one of the, we get out the door with a version 1. It's extremely stable. It has a set of features that we've announced, and basically it does everything the old TruView used to do. By using the public sites, you can control who sees what. But in short order, we will enhance the administrative tools to also manage multi-tenant. So you can absolutely expect that over the next few months.
Thank you, Bill.
And a very insightful question, by the way. So that I'm glad to hear those kind of questions, because it's like maybe people are getting it, what we've done here. So that's really good to know.
There's a question here about the typical file size for a project. I'm sure that varies by user, by firm. But is there a limit to what TruView Global can handle?
Yeah, so again, this is a version 1 story. So I can tell you that typically at TruViews, if you run high resolution imagery and you have dense data with a high accuracy, each scan world position can be 50 to 60 megabytes, maybe 75 megabytes. So you can do the math yourself there. If you have 1,000 positions, it adds up. Out of the gate, it's an unfortunate thing, but it's being addressed hopefully this week in an update. But TruView Global right now has a limit of 4 gigabyte upload. And that simply has to do with the file size. We're actually using some technologies to package the files. That file you saw me drag and drop, the technology that opens that file and distributes it into the system, we didn't find that it had until we did our stress testing very near the end of release, that it actually has a 4 gig limitation. But that'll be taken away very shortly. And we may break it up into multiple segments for you, or just allow it. So theoretically, there's absolutely no limitation. We've actually manually put sites up there of 80 gigabyte sites, and they work just fine. It's just that unzipping of the file after the upload that we need to solve. So, but that's an administrative update that'll come out in a matter of weeks. After I was in meetings this morning discussing that with engineering. So, very insightful question and right on point. And so I would say today you would have to break a project up into smaller pieces and maybe add them all to the same group, floor 1, floor 2, area 1, area 2. But in short order, a matter of weeks, that limitation will be gone.
Okay, excellent. Now, TruView Global is already available for purchase, correct?
Yes, it is. And there's also a pretty aggressive evaluation. If you own TruView, if you have a publisher already, you need to contact, and you're interested in this, you need to contact your Leica representative, and we're going to get you an eval, a good long eval, so you can get in and establish the value for yourself.
Excellent. There's actually a question in the survey following the webinar as well, where you can say, yes, I'd like to get an evaluation of that software. And in terms of the Sorry, I lost my place here in the questions. The updates that are, no, that's okay. The updates that are happening will be anyone who purchases TruView Global right now, they will automatically receive any updates that come through, and they can actually, as you showed, set their software to automatically pull in those updates.
Yes, that's true. So TruView Global does have CCP in it, but as we always do is there's always a grace period at the beginning if you didn't buy the maintenance. And since this is a new product, we'll run the upgrades quite liberally for the first 6 to 9 months for sure until we get up to more of the features that we want to make sure everybody has in hand. But it's just like any other software, you have to stay up to date with it. But as I say, when we come out with a version 1 product, our goal is to have extremely stable and meet the critical mass. And then over the first year, you see massive, improvement in functionality, and we're going to want to make sure all customers get that.
Sure, and you showed on the administrative side where someone could actually set TruView Global to do automatic updates. Is there a schedule that you recommend for doing that update, or even to do it manually?
Yeah, so those tools I was showing are actually a part of a pending update release. If you installed TruView Global today, the production version, all those big icons that I was showing you, those would all be manual processes today, but this is the pace of development here, that those features weren't quite ready on the original release. But yeah, what we do is you'll have a full set of tools that you can define the frequency of how often you want it to check for updates. You can have it download the update, but then hold it until you decide to personally say, yes, now I'll let you update. You might want to do it in off hours or something, even though it's really momentarily. It might kick some users off depending on what was done in the update. You may have to do it without users, and the system would take care of that automatically. It's typically about a 3-minute update process if you're entirely replacing it, so it might be a little disturbed, but you might want to do it in off hours. But you'll have a whole set of tools, and essentially the administrators will be able to sign up for notifications so that we will actually send you an email and push it into the system for you, or send it just to your email address, whichever. Some people don't like to open up the inbound access to their server, which is perfectly understandable. And by default, it's locked off. But yeah, we'll have an emailing thing. So we'll be informing you, but if you were checking once a month, you'd be on top of things, if you set up a frequency. Our developers here and I asked them to stop it while I was doing this webinar, but the beta site is actually set up with a frequency of it checks every hour, because the developers are uploading new builds all the time. So it's really up to you, but once a month would make sure you were staying frequent and you'd get it, wouldn't fall behind.
Well, thank you, Bill. This is definitely an exciting development, especially on the data management side. It'll be very interesting to see what our customers do with it, for sure.
Yeah, I really was happy with the level of questions. I like giving webinars that are mostly a demo, but it's great that it sounds like people were able to follow along quite well and are asking the right types of questions. They're trying to give you the best answers I can to them. And
if anyone has any other questions, they can certainly reach out to Bill after the webinar, or their local rep or dealer. That is all the time we have for today. For more information on the solutions discussed today, you can visit leica-geosystems.us, or again, talk to your sales rep. Our next HGS webinar will be held on September 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll show you how to optimize your use of point clouds in AEC design. Look for the link to register in the follow-up email that will be sent to you later this week. To view our schedule of upcoming webinars, please visit leica-geosystems.us/webinars. As you exit the webinar today, please take a few moments to complete the survey that should pop up on your screen. We appreciate your time and hope that you found this webinar to be a valuable experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine.